morning, church. It's so good to see you once again. So excited just to share this finale with you of CampFire Stories. We've been able to start this series. If you weren't with us, we began this series looking in the Old Testament where a man called Moses had an encounter with the living God around a campfire. Well, the Bible describes it that he discovered a bush that was burning, yet it did not consume, it would not burn out. And from within that fire, God spoke into his life. God revealed his story, his plan to Moses. And in doing so, brought Moses into his very story. If that's not amazing enough, we see that God entered our story in John chapter 1. It said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And this Word of God came into our story. It actually describes it by saying that light broke into the darkness. That was us. We were living in darkness. More than that, we were the darkness. And that the light, who is Jesus, broke into the darkness. And that the darkness could not overcome him, could not overcome his power, could not overcome his love, could not overcome his story. His story entered into ours and became ours. For all who believed in him, we've been given the right to be called children of God. We've been given a new life, a new story. Jesus showed up at the perfect time, in the perfect way. He showed up, and we see him have these kind of encounters. The fire of God walking amongst us. We see him have these kind of encounters with people in the New Testament, where he sits and waits for a Samaritan woman, a woman that was unloved by culture, rejected by the religious. He sits and waits to impact her life, to enter her story, and to write a new one. And he not only did that with her, but he did it with every person he met. He showed up. He showed up to the life of the blind and gave him sight. He showed up to those that were dying in leprosy, the untouchables. Jesus showed up and touched them, healed them, and began to write a new story. And as we studied these stories in Scripture, we began to ask, does God still do that today? Does he still show up in our lives to write a brand new story? And so we began to ask you, would you come up and sit around the campfire with friends and family? Would you just come up? Would you sit down with us? And would you share with us the story of what God has done in you, through you, for you? A few weeks ago, some of you did, and we were so blessed. And someone told me, we've got to do that again. And so we're going to do it one last time. But you know what? Maybe we'll do it more often throughout the year, because I believe your stories are what God is using to reach those he so loves. So at this time, I'm going to invite some friends up on stage. And so if we can have Martika and Marasul, and if we can have Ashley, and if we can have Juanita and Joe, you can please come up. And as they walk up, if you can go ahead and just give them a big round of applause. Go ahead and encourage them.
I know you won't give up on me. You promised that you never leave me. I know you won't let go of me. In your arms I choose to be.
These are my friends, and when I asked them if they would willing to share, like many of you, if I were to ask you, you'd be a little nervous, right? So we want to encourage them. We're here to sit in, lean in, listen, give God thanks for what he's done in their lives. We're here to encourage them. We're here to laugh with them, cry with them, and just experience their story. the story of God in them and through them and for them. Are y'all ready? Let's get started.
Hello, I'm Martika, and I've been attending All Heart Church for about 2 years now. And I'm very nervous right now. I'm very nervous. It was really hard for me to think about what I was going to share. So my mother was married at a young age. She was 18, and she had my brother Ricky. And that relationship, that marriage didn't work out. She ended up having Monica, my older sister, with another man, but while she was still married. So in the whole divorce, my brother Ricky's father got full custody of my brother Ricky, and I would imagine my mom was very broken. I recall looking for him on a lot of holidays, like going house by house, just trying to look for my brother. And she became heavily addicted to drugs. She actually lived in the project in Rio Grande, and she met my father during that time and introduced my father to drugs. And with my father, she had me and my brother Robert. And so by the time me and my brother, were born, my parents were in no condition to raise children. And so that's pretty much like where my story begins. My earliest memory of encountering the Bible was when I was 3. I had a relative of mine tell me to tear up a Bible, and I did. I mean, what do you know? I tore up the entire Bible, and then they just told me, well, pull your pants down, and then I did. I didn't know any better, and they didn't do anything to me, but I remember them staring at me while I had my pants down, and then they left the room, and I got in so much trouble for tearing up that Bible. I had to pick up all of the pages and put them in a trash bag. And my mom was a single mom at this point, so just so you have that in mind. We lived in San Antonio. So at the age of 4, my mom was having a party. And nearby where we lived, there was a little town called Madonna, Texas. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. And it's pretty much a drug town, and there was a gang there called Bad Company. They were the baby blue raggers, and they were always at our home partying. And in one particular occasion that I remember at 4, I woke up to my mom having sex on the bed. I didn't know what it was. I thought that he was hurting my mom. And so I'm crying, and my mom's reaction was, if you don't stop crying, you're going to have to leave the room. Well, I didn't want to leave the room because I didn't want to leave my mom alone, and so I just cried quietly. And at the age of 5, in one of the parties that were going on, I had a pet bunny rabbit, and they got so drunk, they cut off my bunny rabbit's ear, like right in front of me. And that happened twice. And at the age of 6, at another occasion, one of my mom's boyfriends had insulted her, and so my mom had the gang come and beat him up. So I was looking out the window, and there was probably about 5 guys completely destroyed my mom's boyfriend at the time, broke his ribs, and I remember yelling out the window because I was scared. My mom had a difficult time keeping a job, and I know now how hard it must have been to try to pay for everything and raise 3 children on her own. And so she also used drugs, and she sold drugs. So we had people knocking on our door at all times of the day. And one particular night, someone knocked on the door. My mom opened the door and they barged in, put the gun to my little brother's head, and took all our money that we had, whatever drugs my mom had as well. And I was so terrified. I've never seen my mom in such a panic. It was when I got about third grade, I began noticing all of the different men that were in and out of our home. My mom changed a boyfriend about 3 times out of the year. So I lived with 30 different men by the time I was in 8th grade. But I began to notice when they were looking at me in a very sexual way. And it made me very uncomfortable. Or when they were trying to attempt to get me to touch them or make inappropriate comments. And so by the time I got to junior high, I just didn't want to live with my mom anymore. And it was a number of things. It was feeling unsafe at home with all the men that were there, all of the drugs that I was exposed to, how normal it was, having to help, and I'm not talking about a little bit of drugs, pounds and pounds of drugs, having to help wrap it, having to help pack it up in suitcases, hiding it within the car in order to get past the checkpoint. Like all of it, it was wrong and I knew it and I didn't like it. And at school I would pretend that my life was normal. I got involved in AP classes. I did everything that I could to have a normal life just like everybody at school with me. And so in 8th grade, I left living with my mom, and I came to live with my father, who was not much better than my mother. It was pretty much the same situation, but I came anyway. Only upon arriving, he had just got put into prison, so I didn't even get to live with my dad. And I ended up in Rio Grande with my grandmother, who months into me living there had a huge mental breakdown, having to deal with an abusive grandfather and my dad being in prison. So I was literally just hopping around from one aunt to another aunt to another aunt to my other grandma for my whole year of 8th grade. And my mom never looked for me. And it really hurt. I felt like I didn't have a home, which I didn't. And no one was looking out for me or worried about where I was at night or where I was sleeping or what I was eating. And I began crying a lot. And that was when I felt a very heavy depression. I cried so much from 8th grade up until maybe just a couple of years ago. And it was every night. It didn't get better. It didn't get better after 8th grade, but my cousin had a friend who went to church in Rio Grande, and that was my first time attending church. And it really helped me get through everything that I continued to go through. And it was so vital and important to me because I needed, even as an adult, I needed to believe in something, because there was always something going on and there was always such a heavy burden. My life was always a mess. Nothing was ever in my favor. But to know that even the bad things God was in control of, it made me feel better. And so this past summer, I found out I was pregnant with my 3rd baby. And I was very happy, but at the same time, my mom was very, very sick, and she had been, and she ended up in the hospital. She had a really bad fungus in her mouth, and that particular fungus you only find in people with cancer or people who have AIDS, because their immune systems are so bad. And my mom ended up being HIV positive, and I couldn't even enjoy my pregnancy because I was crying so much at night because of this. My mom having that made me reflect on my childhood so much, on how unsafe what a heavy drug user she was, how many men she was with, how much she put us through. And at 28, and all my siblings are also we're very young and we're starting our lives, and now we're having to deal with my mom again. And there's nothing that we can't even be angry because there's no point. You just have to be there for her. And she hasn't gotten better, and she hasn't changed. She's still using drugs. She's still, sleeping around with the guy who gave it to her. She's still in the same trailer, living the same way with the same ideals. And it didn't get any better. But I feel so grateful. I feel so grateful because of the people that I did meet throughout the different churches that I went to growing up. They were different, but I always knew if I was going through something hard to just go to church. And I feel like someone had to be praying for me. Even now, someone had to be praying for me because I didn't end up doing drugs. I didn't end up in the typical statistic that most people in those situations and environments end up in. So I really believe that God must really love me, or someone must really be praying for me, because despite poor decisions I made as a result to my upbringing, it always worked out. It always worked out, and it still does. And so I do get overwhelmed. I get overwhelmed with how great my life is sometimes, because it's not where it should have been. It's not where a lot of my cousins are that had the same upbringing as me, are not where I am right now. They're using drugs, they're in the same habits as their parents, or as my mom. And I don't like to share these things because it's embarrassing. It is embarrassing for my mom, and if she were to hear me say these things, it would really hurt her, and I don't want to do that. But I hope that someone can hear all of the things that I've been through and know that you can still make something different out of your life. There are people that are going to love on you, and they're in God in control, and regardless of your good and bad decisions, it all works out. It all works out if you trust Him. And I feel like very key moments in my life where I could have made a bad decision and I just made the right one, not based off an emotion, it led me down a completely different path that allowed me to have my 2 beautiful kids and this wonderful relationship that I'm in. And I got to finish school, and now I'm working on my master's, and those are things that no one in my family is doing, and that I shouldn't have had the opportunity to do. But just because people in the churches that I gone to were so loving on me, it made me feel like I was worth something more. And so it might not get easier and things might not change, but you could definitely keep going when you believe in something, and you just keep trying. And that's just a little bit of my story.
Hello, my name is Marazul Orozco, and I've been coming to this church for the past 7 years. I also help in the pre-K kids. I'm the co-director for the 0 and 2 years old. Today I wanted to share a little bit of my story and where I come from and my upbringing. And when I was 5 years old, it was me, my dad, and my mom. We were a family. When I was 5, he went to prison for a very long time. And during that time, I had to go visit him in Texarkana, where he was in the federal prison where he was at. And in the times that I had to visit him, he was chained with his hands and feet. And I don't know, but I don't believe that as a child it's normal to see that, and you don't want none of your parents to be in that situation. And as much as I try to forget about it, you just can't. It happened, and during that time, my mom divorced my dad. And from my point of view, what I saw was you're leaving him when he needs you the most, and you just want to get rid of it and move on with your life. And she got with my stepdad, who she's still with till today. And in those periods in that period, I started holding a lot of hate and resentment towards my own mom. And I just felt like, you don't care. Like, I felt excluded from my own family because she was pregnant with my sister, this new man. And it was like, what about me? You just kind of like, it's like, whatever. So that happened. And then even in school, I had to deal with a lot of bullying. I was very, very thin, and I have big teeth. And all of that also made me very insecure growing up. And it's just kind of, you kind of, when you go through stuff, you kind of just want to ignore it, but it's building up, and there's just so much that you can hold and build up. So my relationship with her was never, like, I would see other people talk to their mom like they were friends, and I'm like, I don't have that. I think that's fake. Like, who gets along with their mom? That's how I would see it. And when I was 18, I left the house because when I was 17, I started dating my husband now, who's Adrian, and he comes here. And I was spending a lot of time with him because he loved me for who I was, and he accepted me the way I was. And my mom didn't like it. She said, it looks wrong. You're spending too much time with him, and I don't think, just either you leave or you get married with him. And growing up, all I saw was fighting, cussing, leaving, coming and going. So I never thought about getting married. I'm like, I'm never going to get married. I don't want to get married. I don't want to go through what my mom went through. I don't want to suffer. I don't want to go through that pain again. So I left, and I was really, really scared. I didn't know where to go. My grandma took me in, but I had to work very, very hard. I didn't even consider going to college because I had to work full-time in the day. And it was just, I don't know what I was even doing. I just made an emotional decision because I just didn't want to live with my mom anymore. And even before that, during school, I would hang around with the wrong people because the people that were popular or in, I would never fit in with them. So I was doing things that were not right. And I think all of that was, the root of the problem was because I just had all this anger in me and this resentment and this like just hate because of how my life was. And even dating my boyfriend, Adrian, when we would argue, I would explode and just get real crazy. And he would be like, what's wrong with you? You don't have to get that mad. And I'm like, but it's funny to talk about it because it is, thinking about it. I'm like, why would I get so mad? But when I would go through it afterwards, I would feel horrible. I would feel like I'm so good at putting him down. I don't even look at boundaries. I get personal and I just go deep. And when I'm done, I feel this horrible guilt of, why did I do that? There's no need for that. And it just, I would do it with my siblings. It was just this anger that I had in me. And he invited me to church because his co-worker that he worked with, Noe Sanchez, invited him to this church, and I didn't want to come. I didn't believe, what can God do? I don't think he can change me or my life, or I'm not perfect. Perfect people go to church. So that was my mentality. So after 2 years, I decided to come, and I'm forever grateful. This church has been a blessing and amazing to me. And one thing that I learned that God taught me, because I can't do it on my own. He taught me how to forgive, especially my mom, how to forgive my dad, who has been absent all of my life. And he also struggles with alcohol. He still does. And it's just something that I learned to love them and to just let go of, you know what, they're not perfect, but I'm not perfect myself. And I know God and believe God chose the perfect people to be my parents. And I love them. And I feel that that's how God has changed me in that way, because I know back then this would not be me. But that's my story.
Okay. Hello. I'm also very, very nervous. My name is Ashley Sosa. I serve at Bob's Steak and Chop House, and I've been attending All Heart Church for almost 4 or 5 years. When Pastor Ellie asked me to share my story, I was in the truck with my husband, and I looked over and I was like, nope, there's no way, I can't do this. But here I am. I showed my husband the palms of my hands, and I'm like, I'm already sweating just thinking about like sitting up there. I always tell people that vulnerability is such a beautiful thing, and that we should all practice being vulnerable more often. So here I am practicing what I preach. I struggled with which part of my life I should share, and decided it would be one of the toughest times that brought me to the most beautiful places. But of course I didn't know that then. All I saw was darkness. I was walking in a pitch black tunnel with no light in sight. I was dating a man who made me the worst version of myself. I fell into lust, adultery, lies, anger, envy. And I ended up becoming somebody that I didn't recognize anymore. Sorry. I can't see my phone now because I have water in my eyes. I ran so far from God because I couldn't believe that somebody who loved me so much would let me suffer so much. My ex and I drank almost every day. It was almost like we didn't like each other sober, but when we were drunk, we were so in love. I had zero self-esteem. He cheated and our relationship was so toxic, but he apologized, so I moved in with him. And 5 months later, he left me. I gave this guy everything. I quit my job for him. I cut my salary in half. I made him the center of my life. Nothing else mattered to me but this guy, and he left. I remember standing in my closet and packing all of my stuff, and I just fall to my knees. Sorry. I said I wasn't going to cry. I just remember falling to my knees, and I think all I kept saying was why, like just why, God, right? And I have people in my life that love and support me, a lot of them. But in that moment, I just felt so alone. I was in a dark place where nothing made sense in my life. Get it together. Thank you. I'm going to finish this. Again, I have people in my life that love me and support me, but in this moment of my life, I just felt so lost and so alone, and I was broken, and I just could not move. So the only thing that I knew how to do was talk to God, right? So I did. For half an hour, I was just talking to him in my room, and I just felt like this peace drop on top of me. It was insane. Like I got this power to just get up and go. Like, you got this, girl. You know what I mean? Get up. Let's do this. And I just felt God say, like, I'm right here and I've loved you through all of it. And wow. That was hard for me to comprehend at the time. Because I did nothing to deserve that kind of love, right? Sorry. That was the worst part of the story, so I got this. But that's the beauty of God's grace. So I moved back down to the valley and not looking for love, not looking to date, and definitely not looking for a husband. But God has different plans for our lives. Ray and I have actually known each other for 10 years. We reconnected about 6 months after my breakup and started dating 3 weeks in. And it's like God handed me a gift and said, this is what love actually looks like, you know. He gave me the greatest gift, and that's love. When we started dating, he quickly asked me to come to church with him. He said, we should both learn from the message that Pastor Ellie had to share. Excuse me. I agreed. I came to All Heart Church in 2014, and for the first time I felt like I was home. Most of us have that story of Nellie greeting us for the first time. Mine was no different. She greeted me with a beautiful welcome. And some of the first people I met were Jen, Roy, the twins, and Jesse, who are now some of our dearest friends. I got baptized May 3rd of 2015, and I've experienced God's overwhelming love and grace and mercy in my life. No, I'm not perfect. But realizing that God loves me, right where I am was big for me, and I did that here. Our heart is more than just a church. It's a place where people are broken just like me, but we've seen God's grace in our lives, and we've felt His overwhelming love. And I just couldn't thank God enough for bringing me into this place. So thanks.
Okay, it's our turn. My name is Juanita. I've been a teacher for 17 years. This past school year, I've been able to take it off because I have a wonderful working husband that's able to support us and our family, to take care of my baby girl, Alessandra. And this is...
Hello, my name is Joe Briseño. I'm a general manager of Whataburger, and we'll be coming to All Heart for 3 years, almost 3 years.
That's probably the most you'll hear from him, but okay. Our stories are very, 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 very similar. At the age of 29, my first husband, I was diagnosed with leukemia. At the age of 24, his wife was diagnosed with lymphoma. Each of us in our different lives, but going through our struggles with our spouse, going through cancer. He had Josue at 9. I had Gael at 6 months. As is him to me, it was very shocking because he had been married longer with his wife. He got married young, so he had been married since he was 18. So I guess it was, I can even say right now that I'm thinking about it, it was harder for him because he was married longer, and he had his son with his mom. He was 9. I was starting off my life. I had recently got married, recently got my home, been teaching for 3 years, and then we had Gael, 6 months, and we're told that Freddie has cancer. And I'm like, he's 28 years old, how can he have cancer? And his wife was 24. At the time, of course, we didn't know each other. My husband, Freddie, he fought the battle, a very good battle, for 2 years. Liz fought it for 4 years. Each one of us with our struggles. We both saw them go through a lot of pain. His son losing his mom, my son losing his daddy. It was very difficult. It was a very difficult moment because you have it all. You have your family. You marry the love of your life, and then boom, they're gone. It was very difficult for me because I was the wife. You depend on your husband. I didn't know what to do. I was like, we have a home. I have my baby boy. What do I do? But God kept me strong, and we made it through. I kept on working, got every job possible, tutoring, summer school, to make ends meet because we have the mortgage, and I didn't want to lose Gael. I didn't want to take that away from Gael. This is his home, and I want to do as much as possible. And once I got to know Joe, I found out later he was a wonderful son-in-law. He stayed with Liz's mom for almost 6 years. He promised his wife that he would take care of her mom. So to me, that was a great quality of his. So then he was a widow for six years. I was a widow for 5 years. I told myself I was never going to get remarried. It was just going to be me and Gael. But Gael and I struggled those 5 years. We struggled a lot. My little boy wanted a dad. And I wanted my husband. But it wasn't going to happen. And then Joe comes into my life. His son and my nephew played baseball together. And even before that, my best friend's husband is his best friend. So when Joe and Liz would make plates for her medical bills, I would buy the tickets, not knowing it was Joe. And when Liz passed away, out of respect, because we had mutual friends, I went to go give my condolences to Joe when his wife passed away. And at that time, Freddie was going through cancer, so we related a lot to what he was going through. And in all this, I never thought that I would eventually, a year later, end up being in Joe's position. And when I saw him, I don't think I ever told you this, but I'm here again. I prayed to God I would never, because he was going through cancer. He had no hair. He was weak and everything. And I was like, no, he's going to make it. We're going to be okay. But unfortunately, a year later, almost exactly a year later, I was in the same position he was. I had lost my husband. And well, down the road, like I said, I ended up going to a game where his son was playing with my nephew. He starts flirting with me. And if you know him, Gabriel, he's very quiet. He's very shy, but he got the nerve to hide my keys. And I was like, where are my keys? My dad got very upset. ¿Y ese quién es? ¿Por qué está jugando contigo así? I was like, oh my God. Well, he hid my keys. He eventually gave them to me. He took the opportunity to get my number. And I was like, hey, hello. Okay. And so this was, like I said, 5 years later. I was determined, like, no, like, whatever, you don't have a chance. You don't have a chance. Like, no, I'm not. And he kept on persisting. And at that time, I was attending another church. He was attending another church, and he kept on saying, I'm going to put you in prayer group. And I was like, wow, this is the good one. Because when my husband passed away, he had given his life to Christ. He had planted that little seed of God's endless love, and when he passed away, he made me promise that that he made it a point to tell me that Jesus was going to be with me and Gael, that we were going to be okay, that not to worry about it. And of course, you're like, no, like don't say that, whatever. And I had mentioned before, he had been in ICU for 10 days, and he was already in agony. He was septic. Yeah, the doctors kept on telling me, yeah, it was real bad. And the same thing during the same time, Joe was going through the same thing with Liz. She was really bad. She fought it for 4 years. She was a trooper. She did it. She fought for 4 years. And at the last moment when the doctors told me, yeah, we need to turn off the machine. We need to, untube him and whatnot. And I was like, no. I never wished it upon anyone, but they laid him on top of me and they did what they had to do. And I told them, you know, that me and Gael were going to be just fine. That I know that God was going to take care of us. And he passed. He passed with a smile on his face, hearing that I said it was going to be okay. And even there, God's promise, you know, was reassurance again that he's never leaving us. He's always going to be with us. Liz passed away in her sleep. And when Joe told me that, I was like, oh my God, how beautiful. She was asleep and she was able to feel that peace. And I hurt for him. I hurt for him a lot because, you know, if right now you have your spouse and you turn to them and they've been the only love of your life, just imagine you having to say bye. And when I met him and he was going through the same thing I was like, wow, look at this man who lost his wife and he's with his mother-in-law, taking care of his son, hasn't got married yet. I was like, man, okay, maybe I have to give him a chance. And well, I did. I did, and it was been the hardest, the most difficult decision in my life because it's like you're cheating on your husband. Like, how do you go on? How do you move on and love someone with the same intensity that you love the love of your life? How does it even happen? And I would pray and I would ask and I would tell Jesus, give me that love. Give me that love because my son needs a father. My son needs a father. Josue needs a mother figure. We need to be a family because mixed families, it's very difficult. And it was very difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. It was so difficult. And we're still growing. And right now, it's not, I can't say. But it was very, very difficult. And more as we grew together, I love him. I love him like, now I cannot see my life without him. It was very hard for me to say that. And I can imagine it was hard for him to say that. He just doesn't talk, as you can see. But I can imagine it was because he was with Liz way much longer than I was with my husband. They were sweethearts. They had a baby together. They fought a good fight. But he's a very good man. He's a very good and patient man. My God, he's so patient and he's so good to me. He was my answered prayers after all the why. Why did you take him away? Why is my son without a daddy? Why? If I did everything the right way, I went to school, I graduated, became a teacher, got married, I did things the right way. And now I know why. I know why now. It's because I'm Juanita Briseño, the mother of Gael and Camila and Alessandra Briseño. And that's my why. God is so faithful. He is so good. After the storm, because it's been 6 years, after the storm comes the calm. And right now I can say I've been the happiest ever. And a lot of people tell me, how can you be happy after your husband passed away? I go, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to be his love after he loved Liz. It wasn't easy to get used to each other after he has his ways. I have my ways. And it's still not easy sometimes because I miss Freddie. He misses Liz. And you know what? He's okay with it. That's the beauty of God's love because he's such a godly man and he's so good and God is so faithful. He lets me cry. He lets me talk to my son about his dad. He talks to my son about his dad and it's okay because God is in his life and is in my life and in our hearts and in our families. And God is so faithful and he's so good. And I couldn't thank him for all the blessings he's given us. He continues to give us. I'm a stay-at-home mom after 18 years. Go figure. It's like, wow. He's a general manager. He's worked so hard for us. It's endless blessings after all our pain and all our whys and all our everythings. We believe in the same God. We have the same faith. And that's why we're here. We're at All Hearts Church because, we both had our churches and we parted ways because now it's our life. And he's always told me, allá con Gabe. I was like, I said Gabe, on that Gabe. I was like, okay, let's go with Gabe. And we're here with Gabe. And it's awesome. It really is. We've taken our time. We're getting here, but I have friends here. Marazul, her story was beautiful. Marazul and I worked at Escandon together. And when she shared her testimony right now, I was blown away because this young lady is like an angel from God. She is the most precious, the most nicest person I ever met. I always tell the girls, I want to be like her, because my temper is like, whoa, right, Joe? And when I met her, I was like, oh my gosh, she's so nice. She's so beautiful. She's so pretty. And then when I heard her testimony that she would get angry and that she was all mad, and that's God. That was God working in her, because look at the beautiful thing he has right now. And I'm happy that I'm here with her. And I was telling Joe, when we first started coming, tú gave me, yo mi Mar Azul. I saw Mar Azul. I was like, I'm going. She's there. If she's there, that means it's an awesome church, because she's a beautiful, 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 beautiful person. And then I saw Iris. I can't see you right now. I saw Iris, I'm like, oh, Iris is gonna be coming here too. I've known Iris since 7th grade, and it's just fit in. It's been perfect. And I just wanted you to remind you about our story. Our story is, a lot of people say, oh, it's such a coincidence. God doesn't make coincidences. God does not make coincidence at all. God has his plan. We didn't see it. I didn't see it. For many years, I didn't see it. I would cry, and God would walk up at me and, Mommy, why are you crying? And I'm like, if ever he finds out or realizes the love that I have for him, I hope it's today, mijo. He's the love of my life. Our relationship is very tarnished because I'm so strong, but I want him to be just as amazing dad as his dad was, and as the father figure he has right now. He's been my strength through all of this, because if God wouldn't have given me him at the time he did, he was just 6 months. I was like, what do I do? I wouldn't be where I am right now. I wouldn't be this strong-willed, I'm an open book. You ask me, I tell you. And it's all because of him. Because God gave me my little Gael to keep me strong, because he knew that later on I would need him. And he was my everything. He would see me cry, I would get back up. You gotta go to school, you gotta go work, you gotta do what you gotta do. And God is just so faithful. God is so, so good. And now we have our 2 girls together. 2 beautiful girls. And no, forget it. Girls and daddies are the best. It's just the best relationship. And our story is so beautiful, and it's not coincidence. It's not. To me, my motto is Jeremiah 29:11. His plan is perfect. And he's perfect for me. I don't know about me being perfect for him, but he's perfect for me because he calms me. He's my, he calms me. And God knew why he put him when he put him. And I'm so grateful for his blessings, and just know that God is so faithful and keeps us his promise. This is our story. Thank you.
Wow. Well, I hope you were as blessed to hear these stories as I was. And, as I look at every person on the stage and just the encounters I've had with them, I went to school with Joe, played baseball with Joe, so I've known him pretty much all my life as well. And so apparently he wants to go to church with Gabe, but not me. But that's okay. Okay, he mentioned me. It's okay. It's okay. But I love this couple. 2 years ago, we talk a lot about building our home, right? A church home. And around 2 years ago, I really felt that God was calling us to build a home for someone else before we began to build a home for ourselves. And we found a family in the Colonias, the Gonzalez family, and they needed a home desperately. Their home had a little trailer that had burned. And so I brought it to the church, right? But to do a project like that takes a lot of manpower, a lot of work, and it wasn't easy. And we've got responsibilities and work schedules and our lives going on, and so to go out there and to build a house for someone is not an easy thing. But these two, without them two, I'm telling you right now, that house would have never been built. It would have never. Joe was out there with the blocks, laying the foundation by himself, because I didn't know how to help him, and I was like the supervisor. I'm like, I'll hold your ruler, and so he was there putting the blocks and laying the foundation, and without them, they were donating furniture and money and material, and just Joe showed up with his dad late nights just building that house, for this family he never met, never knew. And I just saw the love of God in him and in Juanita. And then I began to see how the love of God brought them together and showed them that even though it felt love was lost, God showed them how love can be made new again. And man, it was just a blessing to know. I remember when I went in the truck with Joe, we were driving to get material for the house, and he started sharing his story with me. My jaw like, what?
No, and then he tells me, Pastor, what's to share it? We're not sharing, so it was barely until now that we were.
It took 2 years, but we got you to share it, and so grateful that you did, because I believe it's been a blessing to everyone here, and I mean everyone on this side, and I've met these young ladies at different times, and even Ashley and Ray, they've served with our youth, and just getting to know her and getting to know. I've known Ray pretty much all his life as well. He's a young man. He was part of our youth group, and just seeing him grow to be a young man and to love God, and then to introduce Ashley to us, and to see them just fall in love with each other, but also at the same time fall in love with Jesus and get baptized. I had the privilege of baptizing them and marrying them. Also just meeting Mara, meeting her husband first. Adrian came and then brought Mara, and they both fell in love with Jesus. They both gave their hearts to Jesus. They both got baptized. I got to baptize both of them, and I got to also marry both of them, and it's just what a blessing it was. I just recently met Martika and Aaron and her family, and all the stories that are still being written, all that God's still doing. And I had no idea of Martika's story, but she shared with me the last time that you all shared. She says, I feel like God's calling me to share my story. And I'm like, we're doing it. You're sharing it. And so to know the struggles that you went through as a young lady, and to see God be faithful through it all, just reminds me of the stories we read in the Bible, where God constantly and faithfully, lovingly shows up just when we need him at the right time. And I think that he's still just writing a new story. And so, although I haven't had the chance to baptize you or Aaron, I will marry both of you. Right now, Aaron? Right now? But it's so exciting just to see how God is growing love in your hearts, not only for each other, but in your children. Brand new story, brand new chapter. I like to say, don't judge me on the chapter you walked in on, because God's still working on me. He's still working something beautiful in me. And it makes me so happy just to see how in love you are, how you love your children, and what God's doing, how you love Aaron, and how much Aaron loves you. I didn't know Aaron too well. But one thing people tell me about Aaron that know him, maybe we'll hear his story too, is that he's not the same. And I think that has a lot to do with Jesus, but I think it has a lot to do with you too. And so thank you for making Aaron better. Oh man, I love all you guys. You guys are a blessing to me as a pastor, that I get the opportunity to pastor a church of such amazing people is a privilege. And I just thank you for that. All right. I want to pray, and we're going to go and dismiss today. And I just want to challenge you that as they have found the boldness and courage to share their story, that you will do the same. Somehow, some way, that you will share your story with your family and friends, your coworkers, that you will let God share what he's done in your life. Let us pray. Father God, we're just so thankful for the stories we've heard today. Father, just so grateful for your presence in our lives, for where you are, hope lives, love is. And Father, we have discovered your love, not the kind that we've found in this world. A love that's unconditional. A love that loves sinners. A love that is faithful even when we're not. Father, your word speaks of grace upon grace being showered over us. Your word says that your goodness and mercy will follow us all the days of our life. Father, your love, we cannot compare it to anything. It is a great and steadfast and true and pure love that has forever changed our lives. And our prayer, our hope is that everyone we encounter will discover your love. It is a life changer. It fills us with hope. It grants us forgiveness and mercy and grace. Father, our stories have been changed and remade, new chapters written. They've been encouraged and filled with hope because of your presence in us. We sat around your fire, and somehow your fire moved into our hearts, and now it burns inside of us. May we be that hope, that love, that fire for someone else, so that your story doesn't end in us, but is told through us. So we ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.